Episode 301. It is the eve of the madness. The mid-season madness is upon us. Our first international event of 2023 is here, and who better to join us than the one, the only, Kenobi Cast. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. How are you all?
First-time listener, long-time
caller. Or wait,
long-time caller.
It's the other way around.
Long-time listener, long-time caller.
First-time caller.
I think.
Actually, long-time caller.
Really.
I've been
Long-time
here quite
caller.
a bit.
You've been here quite a bit, but I think congratulations are still in order because I don't think you were here after you were on the Overwatch League broadcast. So congratulations.
It's true.
That was.
Homie held down the desk.
Yeah.
Homie did a telestrator.
I did do a with Rich. That was a lot of fun.
A little dance.
I did a little dance. Yeah. Rich kicked my ass though in that. I thought I held my own though. It was 2-1 at the very end, so you know, we got one. We got one at least. But
we got on the board. Didn't get goosey.
That was a very great experience for me. I actually really enjoy working the desk. In terms of like how I view like esports and casting and like narrative building in general, I feel like from the desk it's like really a great place to kind of have more of an open area to like expand on like historical or like you know statistical stuff that like you can do in cast like sometimes, but it's like it's so much more of an open flow on the desk to like do it, and I can like you know prepare certain things. So I was really happy with the desk, and I was really really fortunate and really honored to be on it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I would love to eventually do desk work again, but we'll see what the future holds. But it was, I mean, if that was the end of my Overwatch, you know, career, so to speak, not that I'm retiring or anything, but like, oh god, if this was where it was like gonna be like over, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I did something.
It was a little bit of a capstone, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty big capstone. So.
I won't share the intimate details, but I will. I think you have to give yourself some credit. Starting from where I know you started and getting to where you are now, I think is pretty dope. I think that's something that we
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
I think I know
because I bring it up a lot in behind closed doors, which again, some very intimate details that I'm not, you know, going to out him on. But I think he knows what I'm talking about, and I think it's come up.
I mean,
it's the gulag of the Chinese contenders broadcast with Joe.
When I first started casting back in like 2017, I always had to, because I was so nervous about doing it, I had to wear fingerless gloves all the time.
Yep.
And I think that's what Joe was talking
Wait,
about.
why?
And just because I was nervous, and I was like just having like something like on or in my hand,
something
was
tactile to
like
like
something
just like
there
calm
was
himself,
like just to like calm me down. So yeah, going from that in front of my computer to dancing.
Now he's wearing leather masks, looking like a dog
wearing a dog mask, and then doing a. I forget what the Moira dance was called, but whatever it was, like just doing that on broadcast was.
It's a huge like.
Yeah, it's
so much growth.
If you had asked me back then, like, would I ever be on a desk like that, I would have no. But yeah, that was. It's probably the thing that I am the most proud of in my Overwatch journey so far. So yeah, that was amazing.
Fucking killed it. Yeah, you guys did great. Held it down. Hopefully, if they know what's good for him, get you back.
I'd love to go, but when the time is right,
That's right. Time's right. Timing is everything, as they say. Yiska, what have you been up to? What's new? How's Diablo?
Oh, Diablo is pogging me right now. Oh, I'm loving it. Level 63, 64 Sork.
Okay.
Playing some fucking garbage Arclash trait with like the worst item drop luck. Like I think I found like 3 uniques and none of the ones I need. Even though like target farming really effectively and like really sponging up like whatever like is the best method to get there. I think I'll just like throw in the towel and probably go ice shards. I'm currently already collecting for that. Otherwise, yeah, have enjoyed that a lot. Of course, like still working, settled down some interviews, getting more into Valorant. Look, I wish that game was Overwatch. It wasn't like that they're producing that. I will say the thing that makes Valorant, and it's the golden formula of CS, so appealing is because you have time for shenanigans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the mid round or the in between round breaks offer up so much canvas for like fun moments to happen. It's unfortunately not the case in Overwatch most of the time, right? Like the fights like bleed into each other. You have to discuss old states and whatnot, and it's not like a player can get up between fights and just like pog on you, you know?
Yeah, nobody's getting up and doing, Moira dances on stage in the middle of a team fight. Nobody's doing, Widowmaker, the tactical visor, whatever it might be in the middle. Obviously, you can't. But what you can do is you give them an artificial canvas to wax lyrically on. A foreshadow of a topic that we will probably spend a considerable amount of time on, unbeknownst to maybe the viewer who thinks that this is just going to be predictions. We will get to predictions, don't you worry. But I think there will be a lengthy discussion of why I specifically, and this is my opinion and nobody else's, think that the community and the Overwatch League are both dumb. But as we get into my opinions and not anybody else's, I don't know why that sounds just so like fart sniffy, but regardless, thank you to our patron producers for supporting the show and all of our shenanigans. So thank you to Battlecry, Refund, Being Bronze, Babu How, Picasso, Chris R3444, Kash67, Lulshin, Porkchop, Sammy, Rexane, Volamel, and Sugar High. Our YouTube members, IMDRW, Brother Adam L, Sagifumi, Isam Gel, Fireman6, AK, and Chris R. We do have some news to get through before we get into a specific and particular anime opening. The Seoul Dynasty. Not doing so good. Have made a change that I think might have Kenobi a little excited. A little poggy. Poggy Woggy was a frog, okay?
Team CC boy.
Is a Team CC boy, which weirdly enough ties into the second piece of news. But Seoul Dynasty has signed Ezhan. Seonjun was not somebody who I thought was fantastic. I think he's like somebody who you could probably keep an eye on, somebody kind of like a raw talent. Was okay, like, there's something there, but I think you really have to like give him some good solid coaching for a long time before he like really blossoms. Ezhan's been around for a little bit. If memory serves, didn't look terrible even last season. No. Doing well. I think he was on Dreamers, correct?
Yeah, he was on Dreamers, I think.
They did fantastic. Like, where do you think that this puts them?
Well, it puts me in a great position because I don't have to ever, and the casters in a great position because we don't have to do profit anymore. So that's good.
True.
But I think that like it's a good upgrade for them. I mean, profit was like okay. I think that it might have been just like a little bit too green, and like Ezhan is very much way more seasoned. Been around the block in terms of like playing with Team CC. Just had a really, I think, pretty good showing with Dreamers. Because I'm not sure like really who else is there that you can get for like, huge like alien. It's like I'd be thinking of, but like even then it's like I think Ezhan
too particular.
Ezhan's a solid pick. I think he like fits well into what they want in terms of like hero pool and things like that. So overall, like I think this Ezhan pickup is like relatively good for the team. Will it fix everything? No. I think that Seoul has a lot more problems than just the DPS lineup, but it is something that they do have to fix. So they are at least thinking about it, and I think Ezhan is a good, step in the right direction for this Seoul team that needs to start, making some waves because we are only 8 games left in the season.
Yeah. Weird to say, but we're halfway through. Yiska, any opinions there? Ezhan, does it strike fear in the heart of Profit? I don't know. The big P?
Look, like all of this is sort of, for me, and also in light of the report in our hand, like one guy doesn't make a change. They were, from my information, were trying to make big changes, and those will be harder now to do. And that's pretty shit. Ezhan himself, I think, is an upgrade. Interesting that he went to Seoul, actually. Wouldn't have predicted that. But
Agreed.
yeah, I think they just need fundamentally more to catch up with this. And it's also sort of encouraging that they are willing to make changes and aren't completely checked out. I think that's also like I wished that for Profit, who seem to have taken like their lack of performance pretty hard. At least that's how I interpret. Like, he never really officially said why. He said he has never felt like this in his career. Far be it for me to like interpret emotions or reasons as to why he says that, but like it's probably fair to assume that it has something to do with performance. So yeah, I'm looking forward to an improved Soul, because every team that upgrades makes the league a better product.
It does, and I think that like definitely bolsters it is a sign of confidence that like, yes, I think if you're not living under a rock or willfully living, staking your head in the sand, there is a reckoning that the Overwatch League has to face, and we're still riding the coattails of the league partnering with Overactive Media, waiving the entry fees. We're still having teams making roster moves. Overactive Media, obviously parent company to the Toronto Defiant, also making moves, which is a good sign, right? Because if the ship was going down, then nobody makes any moves and we just go quietly into the night, right? We're not going quietly, which is a good sign. Weirdly enough, a good sign. That said, I think Yiska, you kind of like, I think you're mentioning this as well. Toronto Defiant obviously making some pretty wholesale changes, dropping assistant coach Wheats, OG, S9mm, Sam, Speedily, all gone. New fresh team coming in. We haven't necessarily, maybe by the time you're hearing this, maybe you have more news than us. But we have not heard any kind of replacement talk. My suspicions.
We've had rumors.
We have had rumors, and they do seem to check out with the the duckling theory that coaches try to work within their wheelhouse, and Ezhan has worked with No Hill before. Obviously, No Hill has stayed with the Defiant. Is there reason to? Well, okay, let's not necessarily speculate first. Do you think these cuts have been warranted? Let's start there, Kenobi.
I think it's hard to say, because obviously like Toronto was performing very poorly compared to like the expectations that we had, right? This was like American Tornado. Obviously, like everyone kind of knew that this was a team that should be performing a lot better. Are they warranted? The problem is that there's 16 games in the season, right? And we're 8 games already done. If you're looking for a championship, changes had to be made. Right? I think that there was... It felt like this team was just spinning their wheels at one point, right? Like, I mean, I remember like when I was on the Owl desk, like Kalush talked to us, and Kalush said that like, oh yeah, we do a lot better in scrims, but like you can do really good in scrims and like be a scrim god, but it has to translate like into the results in the season, and it just simply wasn't. Like, they had like a huge tracer problem at the start because they couldn't. I think Jake was on here talking about it, and Jake I think brought up a great point where it's like they couldn't really like have like the tracer player be in there, because all of them could theoretically play tracer. It's just like the combination of like having one, and like, was there too much hit scan from Hydron? Like, all of this was like, I think, part of the reason why it all like started to fall apart for them. So I mean, from like a purely like business, like this is like a purely business style of thing where it's like we need to win and we need to win now. Like, yeah, it's like very much like the Patriots, where it's like, if you're not performing well,
you're out.
You're out. You're cut.
Yeah.
Like, we don't.
Got to be a little ruthless.
We need to be good now, and that fails with like this is, because I think like if you could have given this team, like if the season was like maybe like, let's say, doubled like what it is now, I think like then you have like a way bigger like pool of games to like really, really dictate and find like what the problem. Like, I think if you had like 16 games, then it's like, okay, if you're really not playing that well after like 16 games, then it's like a really big problem. After 8 games, it's very hard for me to say, especially with that core, like breaking it up this soon. It feels really shit. It like just like from a like it just like deep down in my soul as like someone who likes like contenders and all that.
Sure.
It feels really shit to break them up this early. And I know that there's a lot of like I know it's like it's also weird for the conversation of like the tier 2 the tier like teams that were good in like tier 2 going up to like tier 1 and like failing. I think that like the only team that we've seen do really good was like Runaway as like a entire entity. If you want to like I think you can count like maybe EM as like pieces of that and like stuff like that. But I think
Some
Runaway was
core,
kind of like Runaway was like literally it was all of Runaway going to Ally 1.
Yeah.
And I think they're like the only team who have transferred over and like have been that good.
But their individual
think,
parts also didn't end up being very good, right? Like most of those players actually didn't have a future in Overwatch League.
Yeah, I mean Bumper was, I think, very much a system player. There was no like there wasn't really any other place that Bumper could go. I think Johnny was kind of similar as well.
Yeah.
But like this team, it feels really bad that after 8 games we have to see it kind of be dissolved because I think they should have. It would have been nice to see them get like an entire season together.
Yeah. So for
like
you,
maybe,
it sounds like it's expectations, where it's like, okay, if the org's expectation is to win a championship, then yes, this is deserved. But if it's for the long term, maybe letting it play out a little bit longer might have been better.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, even then, like I think you still probably could have. I mean, it's very hard because they were performing really poor. Like
no,
it was really,
it was not
bad
good
on stage. Like it, as good as it was in scrims, maybe like it was like stuff that was just not working. There was like zero coordination, which I think is the biggest thing to me. It's like when the coordination's not working between a group of players that have been playing together for that long.
Yeah.
Like it's a problem. It's a big problem. And maybe like if they had time to get them like back up to shape, maybe take this break and then come back for those last 8 games and just go gangbusters, right? And just, really perform and somehow make their way into like end of season playoffs, then like that would have been awesome. And like maybe the meta favors them, I think, better, a little bit better, right? Because I think unfortunately with this team, Winston was very popular this stage, and as much as I love Kalush for like what he does on like a lot of the other heroes, and like I think the Winston is still like a little bit of a sticking issue, like just a tiny bit. So kind of to wrap this up, business decision makes a ton of sense as just someone who wants to see teams succeed and like have that time to gel. It feels pretty bad.
Agree
that they had to do.
Feel you. Yiska?
So I'm of the school of thought of Gamba that like if it doesn't work within 3 weeks, then it's probably garbage. I think I would caveat this because I've always felt like this team didn't get their meta this season, which is a pretty big question mark, especially like going into after midseason. It's really hard to predict if they would have hit something, right, like in the aftermath. But I also entirely understand the reaction of the Toronto Defiant. I think they have a lot of stakes in this. They have a lot of reasons to be wanting an improved performance, both for, for various reasons. And the expected performance after is just not up there because like honestly you probably need a very good second half of the
need like a near spotless second half.
And yes, there were scrim warriors, that much is true. That's more concerning to me though. Like why are you underperforming as this cohesive unit of friends in live matches? Why is like it feels like a lot of that security of that friend group is gone then, right? Like you should be able to stand against adversity better with your friends, no?
They even got Weeds, who was like a big part of that team, like American Tornado. I think was like a very big part of that team, like sticking together and like being, as cohesive as they were back in.
Yeah,
they were.
So, I think like what one has to say is it was absolutely worth a try. It would have been awesome if it worked for the Overwatch League. It's not. This is actually not a spot on the Defiant at all because other teams were trying to do the same play, and it's very questionable to me that like them just having a different setup, a different coach, maybe Maybe slightly different players would have made all the difference. I don't think that's true. I think here, like the meta stability, like we saw a little bit of the downside in the meta stability because they couldn't actually catch up to the specialists here, right? Like if you're Toronto, you're never going to get up to the level of Houston, who have Fearless on Winston.
Sure.
So yeah, I think this is an understandable solution. I am kind of intrigued that their solution seems to be so feasible because yeah, you have 6 weeks, but like it seems like there's nothing left in NA contenders that's remotely like up to par. If there was, after the change of ruling, you're definitely not allowed to pick them up.
Right.
And the alternatives, most of them are from Contenders Korea. Now, I think the visa process is feasible to Canada. It's not the same thing as the visa process to US, right?
Yeah.
So that in itself makes it maybe a more feasible solution for them. It's going to be interesting, like how that works out with the coaching staff. I think them having No Hill on board makes that easier. And I really hope they have a better second half to the season. They'd probably 6-2 would be good for them.
I'd have to see the schedule.
Yeah. I like just in terms of like the
feeling you're saying.
Feeling of right, what you'd feel good about and where you want to be in terms of direct qualification. We, by the way, still don't know how many teams will qualify for the playoffs, even though we can infer it. Like we can, do the tea leaf reading of like the final days and whatnot, and come up with a conclusion of how many matches will be played, and then how many teams and whatnot. It's in exact science, and like I wouldn't rest on any of those laurels. I'm sure they know, but yeah, you kind of want to be this. I feel like this organization, okay, and let me also be brutally honest here. This organization paid for a top 5 team and didn't get one.
Yeah. No,
and
for sure.
In that, I think it might be one of the teams that were most expensive and delivered the least in actual live service performances. And that's, you can't be happy about that.
No, of course not. Of course you're not going to be happy when, your build... When the market also is billing you like this is a competitive roster, the market also has deemed it to be very competitive. There are people who are fighting you for it. At least I'm inferring that. And what you got was almost bottom 5. Like that's rough.
Again, let me also say, and we're eventually going to talk about this topic more. But let me also say, your pro player salary is paid by more than what you do on the server. And for the other stuff, they were pretty good. They were actually probably among the best in the league, right? In terms of like being open to media obligations, showing up for the fans. Yes, you got to have an org that facilitates that or requests that, but they also did it, and they did it pretty well. Right? So, I think like it's 2023. We gotta like, as much as I'm like a gameplay elitist who doesn't want to have the competitive integrity impacted by media obligations, and I don't want to go overboard, but like you gotta give back, dude. You gotta create something. You don't have to come up with it yourself, but you gotta show up. And if you can
even give it back at this point,
add a little bit of spice, shake a little with the moment, then all the better. But you got to show up.
Yeah, these need to be viewed as like media obligations, because less that they're obligatory and more so that they also help you and your peers. Right?
Sure.
Having information about you out there is important to you, and it contextualizes everybody else's story. So it is an obligation. It should be viewed as an obligation, but it doesn't have to feel like an obligation. Let's put it that way. And that comes down to people like us as well. So, yeah, get on that, teams, please. In terms of Toronto, couple of things from my camp. I think that this is my biggest question mark for this front office, if that makes sense, right? Like, we've looked at this coaching staff, held them in high regards. You know, you look at like Wheats' history, and it's hard to not go, well, yeah, there's some success there. No, he'll obviously, you know, typical genius type shit. You know, he's out here just doing crazy stuff in APAC last season, keeping Valiant at least kind of sort of competitive.
Hey, he got Dia his first win, so
he did. Credit to him, an angel for that. Somebody who like definitely was solidified on my radar as like strategic, you know, somebody who gets what's going on. And Kasaurus, who's worked with.
And Joe dead?
Oh, yeah, he's dead.
Based power outage. The ever weekly. Okay, so Joe was at Kasaurus, has worked with.
Kasaurus has worked with, then.
Yeah, with some of the shot guys probably.
Yeah, with some.
Let's infer what someone that would say that Titans were finishing in 7th and then actually have that happen would infer in this moment. Okay.
So we're playing a guessing game.
We're saying like, oh, is he back? There we go.
Back. Hey.
Do you hear
I'm
us?
back.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah. I'm back. Hello. Hi.
What happened?
What's the last thing you heard?
Kasaurus.
Okay, so before I explain, I don't know, my internet just has been cutting out lately. Kasaurus and this coaching staff, I have to imagine that this was a difficult team to kind of like not only get together, if that makes sense, because they've kind of said as much on their side content that like there was two different kind of schools of thought from like the Atlanta guys and like the shot guys. Like they kind of played two different speeds of the game, so that was kind of like a weird mishmash. The coaching staff also had like a, you know, you're coming in with players that already have opinions on the game that seem very like staunch in that, and it's difficult to kind of like rewrite that stuff. So there's already like a building in place. Let's look at it as like a monolith, right? Like there already is something here. It's difficult to like knock it over and rebuild it. This is where, whatever the next changes are, this is where things get interesting. This is where I feel like this like is the actual test to this coaching staff. I think you can rightfully maybe point some fingers and be like, oh, okay, like you've already had like the friendship club, like, and that didn't work. So how am I going to believe that this rebuild mid-season is going to be any different? I think that there's room to believe that an injection of talent, shaking things up, you know, getting whatever disillusionment maybe was in the locker room out in the ether, and viewing this as something different, I think does a lot to players and I think just to people's psyches. Like just shaking things up and just trying something different, getting new people in and around the locker room definitely probably helps. And now this is a fresh slate, I think is the best way to view this. And I would kind of almost be willing to bet that this is like some of the verbiage that is using in the locker room, right? This is a fresh slate. There's no pressure here. This is a new team, you know. We're doing it differently this time. Yeah, in like a lot of that same, you know, that same way, things are different. So now it has to look different, and that's going to start with the leadership. That's going to start with the coaching staff. So as much as maybe this is going to fall back on the players by the end of the season, if it doesn't necessarily work out, I'm more leaning on the coaches. I'm more leaning on the people that are supposed to be leading this locker room. If they can't, I've got issues with that. Mm-hmm. I'm not writing them completely off. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this isn't necessarily a player thing. Now it's starting from the top down because it's new, right? This is a completely different team. This is not a team that has any kind of history. There's no synergy here. So you've got a fresh building block. So what kind of building are we going to make? That's where I'm like, okay, this is fresh. So what is Kasaurus and co going to give me? Action point 2. I think Yiska alluded to this. I would suspect that a lot of no-hill guys are probably coming. That would be my guess. That's kind of the rumor as well, it sounds like. And it kind of makes a lot of sense, right? Whether or not those all pan out, hard to say. Whether or not they land or fix a lot of the problems, also kind of hard to say. We'll see. I don't know like what the recent rumor mills have been spinning around, but I know that that's been a little shaky, and Yiska kind of alluded that with the Dynasty, where it's like, okay, well, sounds like there's, you know, some market movements that there's some people doing some changes, let's put it that way. So it's, I don't know if it's all set in stone. I don't know. I don't know what the rumor mills have been spitting out. I don't keep up with these things personally.
I don't know, because like main support now really is fucked. Like, my understanding is that...
I mean, they're all from Korean contenders, no? I mean, there are some good ones in Korean contenders that just got out of Donghun.
Yeah, that's...
Right,
like
that's one guy that's, like, already slotted in allegedly to the Justice.
Oh, well then, okay then.
But that leaves FD God open. Dude, like, I'm telling you, this one feels like a carousel again. Like, fucking... Okay, where does this domino begin? Let me think. Probably...
I mean, I think you can get the poker face guys, or two that you could... I think Aiden is someone who, I think, opener, even though I think O2 Blast is probably, like, asking for some
you probably have
money.
to pay.
But still, I think, like, that's worth it. Hyunjae's, like, a... I probably don't think Hyunjae's ready. Like, I think that you're right. It's like a bit difficult with main support. I guess if you're looking for like NA talent, like it's a bit difficult as well, I think, at the current moment too.
I mean, there's so much theory in what might happen, right? Like from if Donghyun comes over to Justice, then that frees up FD God. Where's he going? Blah blah blah. Like this is all highly speculative, and maybe that's also a plan of a former time, you know, like.
I mean, Vega was gonna be
right. Which
the domino piece that makes this all whole.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's just these chain reactions in Owl where like legitimately 5 to 6 teams are impacted by run trade, and everyone moves based on that. And as soon as one of those falters, everything else changes, right?
Yep.
And I will also tell you that even those that didn't make moves, that doesn't mean they are not impacted by it, because they might have not made moves because of how the way the rule worked, right?
Yep.
Also, let me just say this, because I felt like it looked misrepresented once again elsewhere where I heard it. This is not teams fucking up, okay? There's the internal message that was written by Sean Miller, and one additional piece, and let me, like, if you're just listening, haven't seen the article, the difference is the following. In the roster construction rules, and in the roster construction rules that we got in the preseason, it was outlined that the players that would turn 17 before the start of the Overwatch League would be eligible, okay? Another document stated the 23rd of March, which is the start of Pro-Am. By the way, still haven't gotten an answer what the start of the year of the Overwatch League is. Is it Pro-Am? Is it the regular season start? Nobody knows, okay? Then, temporarily, not just temporarily, switch to now everyone that is 17 by the time their first match occurs, right? So it can sign a 16-year-old and then only play him by the time they're 17. By the way, interestingly, by the wording of that rule, you could have signed 3 and only had him play next year, hypothetically. But, and this didn't make it into the article, this clause is also in player contracts. Okay? So there is rule precedent. Like, we have 2 colliding rules here, right? So
Okay.
it is not that someone fucked up from the teams and misinterpreted anything. I would say, if anything, that is more true for the Spark situation.
Right.
This is legitimately different interpretations that were given out and then flip-flopped. Okay?
Right.
So there was a reconsideration in the rule that then was taken back. Probably because if I'm a team that isn't currently considering a change to a player that's not 17 yet, or turned after 17, then I'm rightfully saying, wait, I planned my season around not having those guys available for me. So why are you making them available for them now?
Right.
In order to get their card out of the mud, right? Like,
yep.
I don't fuck with that either. So when I say 6 were up to 6, I'm actually not totally informed on what the transfers in place are. But if I'm saying those franchises were actively implied, that doesn't mean that is everyone that was impacted, because implicitly, virtually everyone was, by virtue of them having not planned around that initial rune change. Therefore, like, it was turned back, and now we're sitting in a position where, like, we're reverse fucking the entire situation up. And I don't, like, you just gotta get it right the first time, right? You can't have different versions of the rule, then explain different versions of the rule. And it is crucial also to point out that there were, by the legal standards and rule standards, different rules expressed, as in the roster construction rules, as in the rule set that was given out during the preseason, player summit, right? Like, that was put into the contract. Like, that was communicated into your internal channel in 2 different versions, right? If there is you can open up this dialogue within the season if that rule change, given a change of scenery, makes sense. You just got to have all your franchises vote on that. And if they're all fine with that change, or a representative majority is, like 2/3, let's say, then you can make that change as well, right? Like,
yeah, that seems fair.
So that turned out to be, honestly, from my perspective, it's a little funny that the Spark news popped off as hard as it did, but this one didn't, because this one is way more impactful to everyone in the Overwatch League than that.
I mean, the visa thing is, like, hard also, though. It's I don't know why people are that off about it. It's just...
Yeah.
It's less the visa thing and more so like the twit longer that their operator, I think, posted about how they were told that like they would get XC'd. They didn't get XC'd. They were explicitly told multiple times that they would get XC'd, and they didn't. Haha, very funny.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, no, I think it is a little silly that like that takes precedent. I like the energy, though. I think that we do need to hold this front office of the Overwatch League a little bit more accountable. And I think that, it's important to hold leadership into that esteem, because this is a bit silly at this point. We've always kind of like joked, haha, clown shoes. It's a little bit of a fiesta, guys. But if we're ever going to make any progress, I think it has to kind of start from the top down, and this can't continue to happen. So we have to fix it. We have to get on top of what the rules are, what they mean, and stick to it. And like Yiska said, if we're going to change it, then there has to be kind of some representation. We can't, because it does sound like this, and maybe I'm reading a little bit too much in between the lines, Yiska. It does feel like the league flip-flopped and didn't tell anybody, and then somebody tried to do something, and we're like, yeah, you can't do that. We changed the rule. Sorry.
That was...
Is that a fair interpretation?
By the way,
or is that not fair?
just to give you the timeline, right?
Okay.
The final rule change, so we're going back to the initial thingy, was after I reached out for clarification. Okay. So I heard that players were being approached that were, by definition of the roster construction rules and the rule set during the player summit, were not going to be eligible.
Correct.
I'm like, okay.
That's weird.
That's weird. Those are already pretty advanced. So let me figure this out. I put in I requested a comment. Then the rule gets changed back. Okay, that's the order of operation, and that's, yeah, I don't know, that should be figured out, right? Like, but like I think Vega implied as much as to say like he had a
he was
contract
getting
offered.
ready to sign. Yeah,
like that's an, you know,
that's silly. I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. That you can bold-facedly tell me that this isn't like, this is one of the first times that somebody's not been approved by the league as like a jab at like the big like a meme around player signings that like, oh yep, they're gonna be signed as long as they're approved by the league. And this is one of the actual only opportunities that the league is, you know, denied them because of their own wrongdoing, because of their own like incompetence, right? And I don't use that word lightly, right? And I do think that this is a little bit silly at this point that we're having, you know, a problem with the Spark and giving the correct information, whether or not you agree or disagree on the information given or the solution to that problem. They were told one thing and another thing happened, right? And I don't care how many times we have to apologize or up the prize pool. It's silly. It's actually just silly at this point that consistently this happens. And yeah, it's a joke that we constantly have to go through this.
Yeah.
And yes, I think I like the energy that like we're holding teams a little bit more accountable, because we have had problems in the past where, you know, oh, we didn't get the email about, you know, the contenders play dates.
Yep.
Yeah, I get that. And you should hold them teams to that. This is not one of those things. This is a front office problem per this report that Yiska's published, and he got his name on it, so I believe him when he's, you know, blown the whistle that this is a top level decision.
Also, real talk, this is not a new problem. I remember reporting on the Fusions incident where he was a 2A player, then couldn't play his third match and had to be pulled off while already having set up his his keyboard.
Yep.
And already back then, I advocated for making all the rules public all the time so we can figure this out. Like, the talking points would just be different. Like, we'd say, oh, Fusion's already had 2 matches. He actually can't play unless they promote him to a real contract at that point, right? So, had we always done that, you know,
we wouldn't be in this situation.
We wouldn't be in this situation, though.
To be fair, that also like heavily implies that the league would listen, which call me cynical. I also don't think that they would be super quick to like hear that community outcry. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll happily be wrong in that category, but yeah, that we have to admit that this also heavily implies that the league is listening to the community, like the community rules lawyers out here, just, you know, turbo nerding and figuring out, you know, actually objection. Yes, Eric.
By the way, that like people were like, oh yeah, like Yiska is once again like hammering in on Reddit users being turbo nerds. Nah, dude. I got myself a rule book from that fucking player summit and went turbo nerd mode and went like, what's wrong here?
Reddit flips on you so often. It's actually
but that's the problem, is like we're looking at Reddit as a single entity when it's a lot of entities.
They flip
like,
on everyone, actually.
They do. It's all the time, right? That's not a hive mind as much as we might think it is. Yeah, no, I said as much last episode where it's like, guys, Yiska's literally subtweeting himself. He is a turbo nerd. He is in that ilk. He will turbo nerd and figure out these rules for you.
I'm literally
he said
German,
it for
guys.
3 years.
I am literally German. Like,
wholeheartedly he would.
I'm going past a like self-respecting hedge and I go, that's at least half an inch too long.
That's a
my tax dollar
code violation.
You are being taxed less because I can look into your garden and derive aesthetic pleasure from it, and by you having your hedge too high, my pleasure is lessened, and therefore you should pay more taxes. This is like what the average
city
German
council meeting. Yeah,
right? No, it's not the average German, but that's how our legal code works. And to no one's surprise, I had 4 semesters of law school. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Shocking,
okay.
absolutely nobody.
Shocking, literally no one.
No.
yeah.
But yes, I like the energy. Keep it up. I like, drag the teams if they make a mistake. Drag the league if they make a mistake. I think
I'm about for more dragging. What about that?
lots of dragging. Let's drag them all. In Kenobi, I need you to feel free to leave for a moment if you need to. I'm sorry, Sean Miller, you're getting away scot-free. And you're not going to do it, at least on this platform. You are supposed to be the commissioner. You are the head of things. I'm sorry, saying big apologies, Spark. It ain't cutting it. This, if I'm to believe Yiska, and I have no reason not to, this is under your watch. This is your problem. How are we going to fix it? It comes to you. It comes to your cabinet. You are the president of gaming for the Overwatch League. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, we just need to fix it. Like
we do. I'm not calling for anybody's heads. I'm not asking for jobs. I'm asking what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, this is like a problem that unfortunately, like you make the mistake and then half a year later you feel the impact, right? And also the solution to this problem can be made now, but you won't see the effect of that in terms of a rule book until in half a year's time, right? So
can they not just change the rules like during?
Yes, but
do they have to do? I guess this is just a question in general from like me. Do they have to every year submit like a rule book and then like is that how it works?
That's
like...
generally, dude, like this is another thing that was crazy to me. You know who received the rule book? From my information, only the players did. The teams didn't.
That's kind of silly.
Like of course they receive instructions around like when things have to happen and like by which time and whatnot, and actually, to a large degree, we also get those, right?
Sure.
In terms of the roster construction rules and the dates there. But I couldn't find anyone that had an official rulebook in terms of like the management level. That's insanity.
Is this an issue of like owner trickle down where like the owners don't necessarily communicate with a lot of the franchises?
Sure. If that's the case, like then that's not a problem. Like that's why like that part
it is weird, but yeah.
That's why this information doesn't make it into the report because I cannot say who to blame here or whatnot, right? Like
agreed.
That's more like a case of subjectivity. Also, to be honest, it is also kind of on the GMs to request rules. And just go like, oh, what am I basing my contract on? Like that responsibility also falls into their court yard. So I don't want to blame the league there, but yeah, I think like what is really important is look at the rulebook, revise it because things change, economic realities change. Certain things always like we have already adjusted, right? Like we took away like the requirements for housing. We adjusted the 30-day rule, which was like the rolling 30 days, which was garbage. By the way, this was a big plus.
That was a good move.
Right?
Yeah,
that was a good move. Just revise it every year, but then put it out to fans, like with some additional time before the season. Some folks will love thinking in systems, not just in how it works out in practice. Will give you like feedback on how things work. I think you can actually do the same for the schedule, even though I will say by the implication of like we don't know what kind of requirements you have. We don't know what kind of budget you have. It's therefore like all we can do is suggest like solutions based on false premises. And unfortunately very often that won't be useful, right? So yeah, that's but like rules I think are universal. You don't really need to know the context as much.
No.
You can like yes, like people will complain and say it is my taste that this is not great. You know the core assumptions of your business better. Everything in matter of taste. doesn't need to be debated. But in terms of like inconsistencies or things that might cause problems, like you don't have to, bend to the wills of the community that will make suggestions. It's just like good to take into consideration, see if that shit can hit the fan down the line.
Yeah.
Also, I will say, very often, the answer to here's a problem is we hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
By the way, what if O2 meets Shock in the
Ooh.
O2 Shock in the finals.
It's an affiliated team. It's not a partner team. In my opinion, there's still a conflict of interest, and you shouldn't allow that.
100%. If you're affiliated in any way, that raises flags.
Are they still affiliated, or
yes. They're not technically the academy team anymore. I believe that they still have
I think they never were technically the academy team. I think they were always just affiliated.
Like a partnership. Or...
Okay, sure.
But it's like affiliation also means very different things. Like if I'm pushing merch for you, there is a different level of conflict of interest in that presence than, me just going like, can I park a player in your roster to keep him warm, right?
Yeah.
Never addressed. Right, that was just part of the structure of how that could have ended up. I think, ironically, O2 was a little bit closer to qualifying this year than Shock. But by virtue of that, you already know how close that was to being reality. Because in many other multiverses, that game match is actually happening next week or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have to go too far to imagine that being a possibility, and that was a thing that we raised a red flag about. And with some concessions, I understand that like some things kind of have to be waived with the health of things right now. But I think hoping it never bites you in the ass is the wrong way to look at it. I think you do have to address these things, and we just don't. So there's again. Communication. Blizzard is always great at that. We do have some predictions to get to. I will say, I want to get into this because we did talk about this prior to the show, but I think we're going to have to shelve it for another day. I think we're going to have to pin.
You think it needs that long for the Preds?
No, maybe. We'll see. We're always terrible at shooting for time, to be fair. We are terrible.
You want to start with the Preds and then see how long we take and then call it there?
Yeah, we could get to it, but if we don't, I'm going to verbally pin a discussion around the content of esports, why Overwatch is bad at it, but this anime opening was at least still fun for me, at least. I liked it. It can't just be all of it. That's my stance. And it is a shame that it is probably likely only going to be all of it. That said, also Spark aren't coming. That's also sucks.
Big Sag.
Big Sag. I also what was crazy is that I had to double check. I was like, wait, are Spark even going when I was doing my press? I was like, bro, wait, if Spark don't go, like that's probably like kind of something you need to think about
for them.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But this was prior to like them announcing it, because I remember like I think they announced it kind of late last night, at least on the East Coast. So I was like thinking, I was like, oh, okay, the Spark have said at least on public channels that like, oh, we're gonna see you in Korea, like we're land bound, that kind of verbiage. So it sounds like they tried to get there. Obviously, visas apparently fell through, and the league tried to work with them to try to get them there. Unfortunately, it didn't work.
Immigration,
it's everything I've heard about it is just a fickle business. So I don't. This is one of those times where I can't blame the league really, because it sounds like everybody tried their best. But the system is just fickle. But it does suck that Spark will not be on LAN.
Yeah,
sucks all around pretty much. Any thoughts, boys?
There's not really anything to say that. That they just won't.
Like real talk, the entire APAC region should have happened in Korea all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the in a different multiverse, if we're gonna get Doctor Strangey, it does, right? If the relationship between Blizzard and China is a little bit better, it probably does, right? We probably have everybody in Korea. Everybody has a team house. Everybody's competing on LAN, and it's great. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And
that's also a side
we're
point
stuck.
of like the other discussion, but like I see no future for esports where the players aren't in a physical location and you can create cool content around that.
Correct. That's why I've always been a studio guy. We should have just went back. If the second COVID happened,
Blizzard Arena, baby, woo!
I think it was probably after this, like a couple months into COVID. I was like, we had like the heart and soul of Overwatch is in live environments. The Toronto homestand was great. Kenobi, I know you went there. It was pretty good, huh?
Very good. Every time I've been to every live Overwatch event I've been to is incredible.
Yep.
Every single time. Grand finals last year was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Even like when Shock 4-0'd, that was a sick crowd to be in. Like when the games weren't like necessarily great, like it was great. Like I mean, the fact that like even back in like season 1, I think we had the greatest probably just play of all time, or the greatest like 2 to 3 minutes of Overwatch I think I've ever seen with London versus Philly on that Volskaya.
Sure.
I think I genuinely think it's perfect. I think from like the casting of it is fantastic. The crowd reaction's fantastic. The play itself is incredible. Both of them, the Hanzo one from Prophet and also the 5K from the Tracer. Like I think that is probably like comparable to like some things I've seen in like League, in Dota, in like like it is esports like euphoria, that entire like 2 minutes of that map, of that second half of that map. And like we've gotten close to that, like when there's been like, you know, back on LAN, right? Even last year when Edison finally got those last couple of kills, when he popped off. World Cup when USA finally won was hype. I think that like, but like there are times where it's like we've just missed on like, because of COVID, we've missed on like I can't imagine what it would have been like if the EQO Blade was in an arena. Like we got robbed pretty hard of some really fantastic. Like,
what about the Pelican Hanzo pay on Coliseum? Like imagine that on LAN.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Merit had one last year, didn't he? Where it was like, they were at the Toronto, or like the Houston had a game, I think, like the Houston homestand or something.
Oh,
where it's like
where they had like the live audience
popped off on
on
Coliseum, right? Like that one. Like COVID really did like the online play, but like again, when you go to live Overwatch, it's like completely different. I think it is one of the most like adrenaline rushing like esports things I can think of. And granted, I've only been to so like I don't know what it's like to go to like MSG and watch like League or anything like that, but when I've gone to the big arenas in Overwatch, it's been incredible. And I think that like the game is so good to watch.
It is. And I think this goes for everything. And I think I think most of the viewers would probably agree that the game is not like the easiest watching experience, but it is far more entertaining. And I'm going to steal an analogy of Yiska's. It is far more entertaining to go to church. And to play within that for a second, we need to go back to temple, right? We have to get back home. We have to get back in an arena. And I don't care if it's on Blizzard's dime. I don't care if it's a mix between Blizzard and the franchise teams, whatever that looks like in 2024.
Well,
I don't care particularly where it is. I can think of a couple places. Yes, one international event a year, that can't be it.
Dude,
right?
Fuck it. Like, why do we always have to be in the most expensive places in the world? Just like fucking go to Biloxi, Mississippi, rent a warehouse.
Okay. All right. Well,
I mean, the Toronto homestand was in like an old hockey arena. Like it wasn't like.
Yes, and that's fine. It has to
be. And it was
in
also
some
good.
Kind of
it was also like still good. Like I genuinely like it still like worked really well.
Wasn't a bad venue.
Wasn't like the noise was fine. Like crowds were good. Like it was a relatively, I would say, smaller arena than like something that like, we're going to see tomorrow when they go to like I think it's like the Kinetics like Korea Global, you know, International Exhibition Center, right? Like it's smaller than that, but like even like putting it in like a theater, like I'm fine with that. Like that's that, dude. That's
but it has to be the home. right? And it has to be consistent. I'm unironically talking about going back to like the Bala Blizzard Arena of Los Angeles era, but not in LA. I'm talking about like going to Atlanta. Big production out there. Kind of, it has logistics to do this. I'm talking about going to Vegas. Cheap. There's already logistics there. There are already infrastructure in place. I keep bringing up logistics, but I mean infrastructure. There are places with infrastructure to do this. You just have to want to.
Like Biloxi,
and until
Mississippi.
somebody, okay, maybe not Biloxi, Mississippi, or like
Definitely not
anywhere,
Biloxi,
literally anywhere in Ohio is probably a miss. But
Yeah.
like there are other places other than LA that you can do this at. And yes, there is some eyebrow raising around like where the teams then have to relocate.
Sure.
I think that's something that you have to discuss with them, but I think it benefits everybody to get back into an arena.
That didn't hit Overwatch League news cycles, but Kevin Hitt had a tweet saying like from what he has heard, he doubt that Activision Blizzard leagues will hold on to the localization scheme.
That's fine. That's
future,
great. Awesome. If that means that we can get more sponsors and get back into an arena, or at least get consistent lands, then so be it. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some fans out there that are not going to like that because that's what they signed up for. If you're even still here at this point, welcome. Happy to have you. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. Like if it's down to you losing your New York team and us consistently playing online and like bleeding out and hemorrhaging because the only time we have to celebrate the game is twice a year, New York's got to go. Just, I don't know. It's kind of the way of things as it stands right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get back to what made the game, to what has like forged fandom. It came from the Ball Arena. I think there are a lot of people who like view that in high esteem. You go but even further and you go back to Apex. There's a reason why, amongst other things, that is viewed in such high reverence, and a lot of it has to do with being a live audience and to a live crowd, having that energy there, the product having the energy to work with, right? You obviously, Kenobi, you've casted, you know what it's like to be in front of a live audience, even if it's
really
just
good.
at a small one. It's different, right? It's different. Everything's different when you have that kind of energy to feed on. So it's we have to get back. It's simple as that. We have to get back in front of it, whether it's a studio or just more consistent lands. I'm impartial to either. It just has to be done.
Yeah.
Last final thoughts there. Spark can't make it. It sucks. We need to go back to LAN. We are getting a LAN, to be fair. We are getting 2. Getting the midseason. We're getting the playoffs. So that's good. It's a good thing.
Right.
And World Cup. World Cup's good. Shall we get on
Preds
to the Preds? I say this a lot too. I don't know that we're gonna be too different, but we'll see.
Oh well, I'm here, so you already know.
I kind of fucked it. I'm not gonna lie, boys. I don't like my Preds whatsoever.
I don't
It's
particularly
hard.
like
They're
mine either,
hard.
but they are kind of hard.
I think
but
they are very difficult.
I suspect that we'll be around the same page, outside of
Yeah.
maybe Kenobi having a little bit of a
Oh,
bias
you will
that's-
hate my shit. You will hate my shit.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
I'm interested. All right. So, we'll load in the top of the hour. Thursday, June 15th, coming out probably as you're listening to this. Hopefully not. Florida Mayhem and the Hangzhou Spark. Spark are playing from home.
Yeah.
Do have to keep that in mind. The Mayhem do have to travel. Is that play any part in your prediction? Kenobi, hit me with it.
I think they've been in Korea for a bit though. Like the
Yep.
Mayhem. I think it's been like a week about.
Yes, I interviewed someone last week on Tuesday,
So I
and they
think
were
that,
5
like-
hours from flying up.
Yeah, so I think that like I'm not too worried about the travel aspect of it too much. I think that that's just like a week is usually like when I go obviously very different for me. Like when I go travel, I need like 2 or 3 days to usually just be like
Kind of adjust.
to be like a normal person, like
Right.
and functioning. So I think they're probably like fine in terms of like, adjusting to zones, jet lag and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
think it kind of does benefit Hangzhou a little bit that they are back at home because of the fact that they're probably just going to be on their PCs, I imagine, right?
Mhm.
You know, going to be playing from home. Not too many changes there. I think even on LAN, I would have had this going the way of the Spark.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that obviously my bias is like towards the Chinese teams for sure.
Yes.
I think that the Hangzhou Spark, though, I think that reverse sweep on Guangzhou was a real turning point for this team.
Oh, for sure.
I think that that's like when I saw that, because I was doing Al at the time. When I went back and like I watched that, I was like, okay, like this is what I was like looking forward to, because they weren't really like performing too well during the season.
No, not at all.
I think they can be very lucky actually that they got this far.
Yep.
And into this tournament, because I thought I was after, like, I was pretty much adamant that they were going to be cursed again and not get to the tournament with it when they were on the same side as Guangzhou, and when they were, you know, I watched them go down 2-0. They didn't look good. Leave is still that guy, bro. I mean, I cannot really emphasize how good this DPS duo is. Shy has gotten a lot better at Sombra. I remember watching him earlier in the season. He was not very good. He seems to have like picked it up really heavily. It is going to be something you need to have, I think, during this tournament. But even then, like, even if we move away from the meta has been trending for me a lot away from like Sombra Tracer Dive. Like, there is still some of it, but Hanzo's starting to become really important. And boy, God, is Shy good at Hanzo. Like, I think if Hanzo still continues to just like rise heavily in priority, it is the perfect hero for like Shy to pop off on, right? Because you just have like, you know, your ability to just stand there and one-shot people, right, with your mechanical skill, which is what Shy is the best at, right? He did the entire reason that like Spark were good last season, besides maybe Gushui on Winston, was Shy on Sojourn just clicking heads. So if he can just sit there in a Kovacs lobby and just doink people from across the map on Hanzo, I think the Spark have a really good chance at winning this. I think I have it 3-2 to the Spark. I think the Mayhem are really good, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for getting here. The one thing I would be very worried about is if this is very Winston, if this not Winston favored. If we go to like Ramatra and stuff like that, I get very worried, because 20 is not up to snuff on that hero, and I don't think Gushui is either. If it's like a Winston handshake, then I think it's like it's I think the Spark are gonna have this one pretty handedly. So I have it 3-2 Spark going 3.
Joe, tell him.
Okay.
Tell him, Joe.
All right. I mean, I'm here for it. I have it reversed. I have it 3-2 Florida.
Okay.
Partially towards that ending point where you're talking about Ramatra. You're talking about like keeping this Winston. I think Mayhem can compete in the mirror, if that's even a thing. I don't expect this team to want to mirror.
I don't think they'll handshake either. I don't.
I highly suspect that, you know, this is one of the more creative teams in the league. They're playing a whole slew of compositions that like literally the only other team that you can really point to is maybe like Infernal with like their ball stuff that's like really off meta, if you will. On top of the volume of their creative choices, this is also loser's pick, right? So God forbid you do open up with a handshake map or you do have to mirror, you know, into the Spark. Let's say Florida does lose, they can try to tailor their picks to try to drag the Spark into a Ramatra, into something that they've, that may have prepared for. Whether that's some Diva strat, some Zarya strat, some whatever, Rhine, if you will, right? It's going to be about Florida in a way, and I hate using this lingo, cheesing the Spark. I think the Spark probably have flipped the switch. I think they are competitive, and I think that this is not going to be an easy matchup for the Mayhem, but I suspect that being able to throw them off rhythm, giving them a question they have a hard time answering. It's taken them eight or so games to figure out where they, where their sea legs are now. You can't deny that the Spark don't have a puncher's chance. They're very explosive. You brought up, Shy's Hanzo and Leave still being that guy. 100% is. Totally agree. It comes down to Gusha. It comes down to my minor PTSD from that Seoul Infernal head-to-head, where this boy was purpled every chance that he got. Skewed was on his ass like grass, and he's a lawnmower, and they had no room to do anything ever at all, and that only made Shy look worse at Sombra. RuPaul's going to do that We know this. If they get a Ramatra map, and again, losers picks, they're likely to get a couple of them. It's going to be tough for the Spark to kind of get it across the line. I think this is almost a lock for Florida, but they're going to have to eat a couple to, they're going to have to eat a couple punches to get in to do any kind of damage, if that makes sense, if the analogy kind of plays. So I have it 3-2 Mayhem. Yiska, what's the tiebreaker?
I got a 3-1 Mayhem, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Even more confident. I don't hate that.
So, 1, RD had some modeling. Of course, this is not super.
Damn, it's hard to argue against RD's model, man. I don't know. Oh no.
Is it still holding up after last week though?
I haven't checked actually, but okay,
it's been holding up pretty good like throughout the tournament.
Just to give you an idea, they're pretty evenly matched on control. Their hybrid is 100% Florida.
Yeah.
Escort is 90% Spark.
Yeah.
And then push is Florida favored 70%. That like the most likely outcome is 3-1. Now, of course, this is not really representative because like these guys play in different regions, and you know there's a lot of inaccuracy and noise there. So we'll see. I think like relative strength in a map type probably translates in some way, but we'll see. And I think, yeah, it really depends on what kind of Spark shows up. I think like Leaf can absolutely burn that house down if he wants to.
Wholeheartedly, he can take checkmate. He can take checkmate to school, and Shy can take merit to school.
Like as fucked as that sounds, but I almost think this is probably the least important match of the tournament.
Yeah, I would agree. I would tend to agree. I think
just in terms of like power level, I guess like because like the other ones are going to be very important for like dictation of like.
Yeah.
Sure.
We see the strength.
How things go.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, agreed. I think and this in a weird enough way, I think we got two like very polar opposite representatives from APAC, where the Spark, even though they are a Chinese super team, the way that this first half of the season is played for them under probably one of the more creative coaches that the game's ever seen in Ray, they feel like a Korean team. Like they are very regimented. They play one style, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas the Seoul Infernal, a Korean team, out here pulling out Wrecking Ball. They're out here playing some Orisa. They're playing Diva. They're playing Sigma. Like they're very much not the typical Korean team. And if you're agreeable to the idea that the Hangzhou Spark feel like a Korean team in esports, there is a universal truth that I will forever bang the drum of in any esport. I'm telling you, if you have a highly regimented team that is very rigid and sticks to their style, and you get them early on, there is an ace in your hole. It is to cheese them. And Florida Mayhem are the cheesiest team coming out of the West. So yeah, it feels basically like all they have to do is just sign up and they win, at least in my book, but it's not going to be completely just a write-off. Like they're going to have to work for it, but I don't see too many worlds where Mayhem doesn't win.
But
we'll see.
Let me just say, like my prediction that we wouldn't actually take that long for this bracket was probably the worst prediction of all predictions.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We just hovered on this 15 minutes.
Table that other thing.
Yes, exactly.
So okay, next match,
Boston, Houston.
Big one.
Big
game.
Big.
Is it a close game?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Really? I don't think so.
I think it's either a close game or Boston wins handedly, I think.
Really?
Oh, Boston. I think Boston currently is the second based on I'm going to preface this by saying based on like the fact that like how both of these teams played against Atlanta, Boston played Atlanta way closer than Houston. Houston had one map where they got to like kind of shimmy down on like the Sombra EMP stuff with like Happy and Lip, but Boston throughout the series played close. Houston had that one map and then kind of ran over the other time. I think Boston in their series against Atlanta played it way closer, and this team I think is like there's all that question about like mental booming. You know, are they together? Are they not together? they're playing extremely well currently. I think that they have a top 3 support line in the league overall, because I think it's literally them, it's Houston, it's Atlanta. I think they're like the 3 best support lines that we have. I think it's fantastic that Lee Jae-gon gets to play Brigitte now,
yeah.
because I think that it's a lot better than like the Lucio. Not to say that like
Agreed.
It's
Lee
not much
Jae-gon's
better.
Lucio.
It's not that much better.
What?
I think it is. I mean, I think he
Yeah.
just has like a
He doesn't have the roller skates to turbo
he
feed
doesn't have the
as
roller skates to turbo
incessantly,
feed, yes.
but after doing the infographics, it's still kind
I
of
mean,
rough.
still, but like I still think just like holistically, it's better.
Yes,
to have
I agree. It is
he's
better,
just,
but
he's playing it better. I think there was like an interview where he's like, I can play it a little bit like Goats, right? Where he's like, I think he just he gets it a bit more. Twilight's playing, I think, like one of the best Dianas in the world.
The
Like,
homie actually looks vintage.
He's insane, I think, at the current moment. And then, like, if that's not enough, you have Izayaki, who's also there, like, playing extremely well, coming off a collapsed lung. Like, this support line, I think, is, like, incredible in terms of, like, interchangeability, and, like, every piece you put in is fantastic. Smurf looks great. Kalios, I'm not, like, too actually, like, sad with in terms of, like, when he brings in. Yeah, I think his win record's, like, lower, just generally, because they need to bring him in for like diva maps like Rialto and shit like that. But this team, I mean, I think that like stepping up to the Houston Outlaws, they match up like really well, and I think it's going to be really close. I think this is 3-2 for me, Boston.
Really?
Yeah, I think this is going to be very close, and I have Boston.
Okay, here's
barely eking it out.
Here's the reason why that is an unlikely result.
Okay.
The RD stats have
I can't.
Houston.
Wait, I know.
Have Houston win control 99% of the time.
Correct. Yes.
So the 3-2 Boston is super unlikely, right?
Yeah.
They probably got to win it 3-1.
Yeah.
Because they are favored actually in hybrid, and the other 2 map types, so escort and push, are coin flips.
Huh.
So, because Houston has such a control advantage, it's unlikely that if they make it to map 5, that this will be close. I think if Boston gets it, it's probably going to be a 3-1. But 3-2 Houston is actually probably the most likely outcome.
I've got this 3-1 Houston. I think it is like a close matchup, but Boston, if they want to get out of, how to put it, like any kind of like shenanigans when it comes to like mirroring or like just, I think you have to prey on the fact that Fearless can't do anything else but play Winston and maybe Doomfist every once in a while. Like that's the angle that you have to take as Boston, and Smurf can do this. Like they 100% can do that. It's whether or not they do it, right? Like it is something that they can play if we're going card games with this, but you have to be willing to like side deck that. You know what I mean? Like they have to come with that to Friday Night Magic. And if they don't, and they just think that they're going to be a better team on paper, and you're going head to head with one of the best Winstons in the league. A Sombra that has improved quite heavily, even though I think his Tracer still is exactly where I marked it. He doesn't need to have a Tracer. Talking about Happy, to be fair. I don't know if I trust Birdring outside of Hitscan right now. I think Decay looks good for the most part. I think more of a quiet season for him, but he's also playing with some absolute nuts, so it's hard to completely stand out, but not a bad team.
I think though that the DPS are the least important part of this matchup. Genuinely, I think that they are. If we're ranking like the importance of like the players and like the role that they're going to be playing, if we like do handshake the win, like I think DPS is the least important. Like it's going to be Fearless versus Smurf, and then like that's going to be a big matchup. And then I think the supports are really going to be the defining factor, especially when it's Shu and Violet versus the 3 of the Boston, because I think one of the things that like Twilight has been able to do, probably more so than anyone, is like be essentially a third DPS on that thing, on Ana, right? And it's like, can you do that can you replicate that against Fearless? Because Fearless, I think, is someone who probably will have a much easier time, like,
adapting to that.
Adapting to that, because I think like he's not just going to continuously throw himself at the Ana. I think that they can probably like fix that, but like they do have to like, it's not just going to be easy. Like you can't just counter dive this team. It's so hard to do. You have to like be super duper correct if you dive this team, because if you don't, you die. You instantly die. I think Boston's very good at just like, if they do see someone purpled by Twilight, instantly that person's dead. So it is, I think honestly the supports are going to be the defining thing. The DPS are like good in their own right, but I don't think that they're going to be like, I don't know if they'll make or break the game as much as the supports and the tank will.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that's you're kind of like working through it, kind of explaining, at least in my mind, why I think they kind of don't matter as much, where it's like, yeah, I agree. Fearless is probably going to be able to, like, whether it's committing the bubble earlier or shifting what targets he wants to go on or changing how he's leaping, I think he's going to get in front of Twilight's nades wholeheartedly and really put a stop to like the volume and the range. That's the one thing I don't think he's talked about enough, is this motherfucker's throwing 3-point shots from Hollywood B on the high ground and hitting people in spawn. It's nuts. That's wild shit. And sleeping like he's Jaehong in prime form, right? Like, it's nuts. That said, I think that Fearless is the caliber of player, you know, is that star player that can kind of adjust to that. And it comes back to, I think, what Yiska kind of planted in my mind really early on in this stage is Houston's pace. And they're the only team to kind of look like Atlanta in terms of like the fundamental like dive structure. Like their pre-fight planning with Happy on Sombra is very good. It's not Atlanta good, but it's probably the only thing close to what we've gotten so far. So if they do get a good Sombra, you know, dive map, they'll play that. And I think it's up to Boston to be able to kind of shut that down. And that's, I think, very hard for them to do, because Birdring doesn't feel like he's of that caliber of Sombra. He feels way more comfortable when he's on the Hanzo, the Sojourn, the Widow, hit scan. You know what I mean? That's where I feel like I trust Boston. And that's just not always going to be the case. It kind of feels like Houston Glads, I think it was, or maybe it was Atlanta Glads. I think back in like week 2, where it's like Glads are playing hit scan on Hollywood. Kai is hitting every shot possible. Kevster is popping the fuck off, and they still lose because you can't. That just can't be it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how Boston feels like for me. I agree. They probably looked a little bit closer against Atlanta. That feels like a day at the office to me. That doesn't feel like it's like super indicative. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that like the pace that Houston's going to set, the Sombra kind of synergy, that dive structure is going to be a big thorn in the sign of Boston. And then to hear the RD stats, it's, you know, like you said, hard to argue with the machine.
Can't argue with RD. He's so it's so good.
True.
All right. Good. I think that you're swaying me a little bit. I do agree that there is something there, so it could go a little awry.
Can we?
Yes, Florida, Atlanta.
3-0.
Moving on. Is it a 3-0? Yes,
3-0, 3-1. I got
3-0,
it actually
3-1.
3-2, but
really interesting.
Atlanta do fuck around on control a little bit.
they fuck around a little.
I mean,
yeah.
sure, okay, so it may be a 3-1. But
I'll
like,
say
do we see Atlanta losing?
No.
Is there any world?
No.
Okay.
It's this team is too good, man. Like
Yeah.
Donghak might be like the signing of the season at some point, though. I mean, this is. I think he's grown really well into like playing Winston, because me, Donghak coming into the league was just like Hammond player.
Yeah,
like
ball
that's
player
it.
guy.
Like Winston probably can pilot, like fine, but like this is way beyond what I thought Donghak was going to be going into the league. So I think that he is actually probably like looking at a rookie of the year potential if he like continues.
I mean, yeah. Not to.
I'm the few players that are alongside, right? Like,
yeah.
It's like sugar free, and then...
he's up there.
True, base, sugar free. So you're so base for that. So base for that. What does our technical bracket say for the next winners round 2 game? Let's, Eric, what do we got? What's our next game? Because I know that's different for the two of us. Houston Infernal.
I'll just do it based off of the ones that we have, and
let's just work off the master bracket, and we'll judge based on that. So Houston Infernal. Yiska, we'll start with you.
3-2 Infernal.
Ooh, I don't
Holy
hate that.
fuck.
This. I'll go next. I think this is a complete coin flip.
Yeah.
It depends on how badly the Soul Infernal poop their pants on stage.
Yes.
That being said, pants pooped and all, I have Houston taking this 3-1. Even though I think style-wise, Seoul probably has a better matchup into Houston. If we're going to talk about, how do you beat a Korean team? You cheese them. So the Infernal are hyper cheesers. These guys are playing the most dishonest bullshit I have ever seen, and I love it. Somehow, some way, Rawson has assembled a crack team of tea leaf readers and astrologers to make Mag a good ball player in my mind. I don't think I'd ever say that, but here I am telling you that I don't really hate Mag's ball after his performance on the Washington Justice. That's where I'm at with this team. It feels like a coin flip. I got it flipping Houston's way.
I think that's fair. By the way, let's just also acknowledge whoever shows up against the Infernal, it's going to be a dope storyline. Whether it's Mag versus Decay, or whether it's Shu against Skewed, right? Like both of those are pretty
Can't miss.
Yeah.
Pretty good storylines.
So I have this based off the master bracket. It's not the one that I had, but I think that this is, if it were to be like the hypothetical of Houston versus Seoul, it would really depend on me actually how they beat Boston if they got here, because if they do manage to just get over Twilight and get over this like entire team, I can see Houston like pretty off riding the momentum, and I'd be like, I don't really know if Seoul has the like chops in terms of like the firepower, even though Skewed is playing like one of the best players in the world based on Winston's love stats. Yeah. I don't know if there's firepower from Seoul Infernal to beat them. So I would probably say this is 3-1 Houston. With it probably being very close to like 3-2, because Joe is right, there is like the cheese that can happen. Yeah. I don't think Houston's has played a team like the Seoul Infernal. A lot of the teams in this bracket haven't, besides just the Hangzhou Spark. So I think it could be very close, and I think even there is a chance for Seoul to win. But I think if Houston comes off of a win against Boston, I think they will probably be unstoppable until they meet it.
Let me poke you there for a second. I think the closest team to the Seoul Infernal are the Florida Mayhem. Houston played Florida week 5, 3-2 Houston. Just saying.
I
mean, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like they're kind of creative. They're a little weird.
They ain't seen ball, though. They ain't seen that ball, bro.
That's true. It is a little bit weirder. You got to give them that. It's a little bit different.
When you're saying weird for Mayhem, it's like, oh, bro, we're running like a DPS that's different. I mean, it's still Ramatra. Sure. It's still Ramatra Winston Diva. Like, it's not like they're seeing ball coming into the table, right?
Again, but that's the only thing that we have to compare to.
But what I'm saying is like I don't think they've seen a team like the Seoul Infernal being able to just roll out on like a couple of things that just are like so completely abnormal.
Agreed.
I think the interesting part of how the brackets fell is that it is opportune for Seoul to scrim both Florida and Rain a lot. And those guys also were earlier in Korea, right? Than the other teams. I feel like if Infernal sponged up enough knowledge from Rain, I think they're very good scholars. And that's what pushed me over the edge. To say,
interesting. Okay.
There's a world where, because I feel like this team, like when they're on fire, they're just
they're
so good, right?
Yep. Very clean team.
They're schmoovin' and grooving.
I think this DPS line on their best day beats the Houston DPS line pretty sizably.
Man,
I think Zest clears
Pelly.
There's no way. I don't.
No, I don't hate that. I think it's
clears Pelly is different than
again on the best day. So prime both players.
Prime Pelly was rookie of the year, by the by. Like
I mean, he did get to
On
flex Echo a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, he
Echo's,
did
not
get to
trust-
Echo's starting to come back into the meta. Like it's not
heard, hear ya. I don't. That's like the weird Houston angle that they can take, where like they do like playing Pele
I
on
would
Echo,
not
and it's
say
good.
cleared.
But
I'm fine with saying that like Zest.
it's comparable.
It's comparable. Cleared is way too like I think that you cannot disrespect Pelican in that way against.
The one thing that I think you can give Zest, because it's tough for me to remember either of their Genjis because they both kind of seemed. I felt like Zest was a better Genji.
Zest
as a
was
feeling.
really good at it. I remember.
I think I like Zest's Tracer more than I like Pelican's Tracer. Prime Zest. I'm talking about like he's not pooping his pants live on stage and floundering against the Dynasty.
Big question mark. Like this could also just be a 3-0 shitfest. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it really could. If they come out like they did against the Dynasty, their nerves on stage, it could get rough, right? And that's the question. Is like, was that an early stage, first game of the season jitterfest?
Yeah.
Or is that something that's just gonna have to be worked on?
To be fair, they did beat Dallas Fuel on LAN and decisively. So, they've beat some of the LAN jitters allegations already. But yeah, this is the trial by fire.
I'd say different caliber.
Yeah, this is the trial by fire.
Yeah.
So okay, lower bracket, right?
Though, I think.
Yes, lower. We got Spark Infernal. I've seen this match before. Two different teams, to be fair.
Yeah,
two very different feeling teams. The Spark in that head-to-head that I referenced got absolutely booty blasted, booty boot camped
so hard
by Skewed, and specifically just Skewed. Homie made sure that Gusha was Lulu-fied, he was transmogrified, he was polymorphed and shit on.
Yeah.
That kid was nowhere near
No.
in that game. And that made it really difficult for Shy to do anything.
Yeah.
On top of that, his Umber's already questionable. So it was just an utter shitfest. Is that the team that walks up today, Kenobi?
I mean, it's very hard for me to do this. I think Seoul probably wins, and I think I want to say 3-2, but I could very easily just see this being a repeat, especially if they're in the losers bracket like this, and they just fucking buster the fuck out of this tournament, crash and burn completely. I think the Spark is different. Like they are a different team. I really do think that like reverse sweep really changed like the outlook of that I have on the Hangzhou Spark, and that they could like, not mentally just collapse completely, that they have it in them to make that reverse sweep. But also, I can't forget about how bad it looked when they played Seoul the first time. It was not even close. And unless the meta is like changing to the point where it's drastically different, I still think it'll be close though. I hope.
I think it'll be closer. But I think this is just a stylistic mismatch.
Yeah.
Again, you have like a stereotypically very Korean team in the Spark versus like a kind of a weirdly stereotypical Western team in the Infernal. The Infernal already are doing better, the Spark improving, but already having to punch up, having to like hope that their players are like playing well on the day. Having to like lean on the explosivity of your DPS is not something that historically has been super sound in Overwatch predictive models, right? I have it closer. I have it going 3-1, but you got to give it to Infernal for me.
Yeah. If that was my bracket, I would also say Infernal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Boston Uprising, Florida Mayhem.
Give me Boston 3-1.
Same.
I like a Boston.
What did you
Boston
say?
What's the score?
3-1.
3-1. Okay.
Unless they've just mentally collapsed, which
yeah.
I don't think they will.
Yeah, no. I think 3-1
I think
solid.
those allegations.
I think the stories have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, I think they beat those allegations. So
yeah. No, this is all right. So, okay.
Checks out.
Upper bracket final. You guys decided on Houston against Atlanta. Can Houston bring it back against these guys?
No.
Oh,
this is a 3-1.
Exactly how it happened before. I don't think anything's changed.
Interestingly, this is also the score I have for Seoul against Atlanta Reign. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Wait, you have Seoul beating Atlanta?
No. Also
okay. I was like,
losing
You
three.
have Seoul
whoa.
beating,
Okay.
you have Seoul beating Houston.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the lower bracket final that we decided on here is Infernal against Uprising.
Correct.
Give me my narratives, bro. Ugh. Mag versus Decay. Let's go.
It's hard to miss on a lot of these matchups. There's some kind of ties there.
Right.
This one's hard. This one does feel like a kind of a toss up on who's playing better on the day.
Yeah, this is a very.
This one's tough. Evenly matched, I'd say.
3-2 Boston.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think they've looked better in the more competitive region.
This would be though
but-
if Infernal has gone through at this point
Mhm.
and gotten this far, I think we really need to start having a larger conversation on Skewed than we already are. If he's able to
yeah.
like take down, obviously it's not just going to be him because Fix is
Yeah.
there, but like if Skewed is able to like match up very well and be effective against this Boston support line, like we need to start like having a big conversation about Skewed more so than we are.
Homie just isn't some brig one trick that rides the bench. He's a fucking all-star. Yeah. He's a G.
If you put down Izayaki, Twilight, Lee Jae-gon, woo, like.
That says a lot. Yiska, where do you stand? Infernal Boston.
Infernal Boston. In that case, I'd probably say Infernal. But
so you are on the Infernal trade.
The T1 Cope.
But
T1 Cope.
But I will next round. I will disclose a fact that will ring so true to you guys that you might say, "Oh shit, Yiska might actually have the perfect bracket."
I know exactly what you're saying.
I'll lay it out, but we'll get there. Okay.
You're so dumb.
Okay, so you guys, like, if we say Boston, which I'm sympathetic to, it's not a big deal for me. I can let the Infernal boys go.
Boston rematch.
Then it's a Boston Houston rematch.
I mean, I would need to know what would like this would be indicative of what happened in the first season.
So, sorry, actually, like Boston Houston hasn't played at that tournament then.
Technically speaking, if the
first round.
No,
sorry,
the first
round.
Right.
Completely true. Completely true.
So if like this would be if they do get the rematch, I would like need to know how.
Right.
But how did the other person win and like what happened? Yeah. Because if it's just like a shit stomp, if I'm just gonna say it's probably 3-1 again.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Too many times. Do we get a good
I think
run
I said 3-2 Boston when I did, but I would just say 3-2 again because I wouldn't see too much change.
Now that would be logical, and therefore we should go 3-1 Boston. Now in my bracket, okay, this is Houston against Infernal. Okay. Get ready to say Yiska is the perfect bracket because I'm about to spit truth. So in my bracket, Houston plays against Infernal in round 2, correct?
Yeah.
And I say they win 3-2.
Okay.
In this round, Houston just shits on them, goes 3-0 into the finals. Like that would be such an Infernal move.
Philly. Yeah.
It would be very Philly for them to.
It would, of course, also them winning here and going into the final and losing 4-3 would also be very Philly.
Very Philly.
Yeah.
But like
they do have to get second.
There is something that just like, you know, like the what's the fork called that you can like the one that makes the sound?
What? Huh? Tuning fork?
Tuning fork?
Oh, yeah, tuning fork.
Like that just like resonates with my soul. That match. That the fact that Infernal clutched this out, everyone's like, "Pog, Infernal's so good." They probably even make it a close 3-1 against Atlanta, and then they're just like, "Oh, we're almost good enough to beat everyone." And then in the next series, it's just like, boom, just nerded out, and Houston goes to the finals.
Okay, so
I don't hate that if it's close.
We all have Houston, Atlanta, then in finals.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think all roads lead back to that head-to-head.
I think that's a 4-2 grand final.
Yes,
Atlanta
correct.
It up.
That's exactly what I have. Yes.
It could be. I'm a little scared from eating a shoe that I'm gonna write off, every other team but Atlanta because they look so good, and then they miraculously poo on themselves.
I mean, it'd be really like dude, this team is just I don't know, man.
It's so good.
They look a little different. I will say they looked a little different in Pro Am too, but.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but this is like
Glad's in here to help you.
Glad's can't have Kevster just fucking deadlift you. I think
Yeah.
Lip probably, if they win this tournament, if he's playing well, it's like probably an MVP angle for Lip, I would imagine at this point.
Agree.
I
Dude.
think the backline gets Roll Star again, probably. Like, I don't know. This team is
Who did
very, very good.
Atlanta lost to Glads, right? Or did they lose to
Yes.
Florida?
Yeah, they lost to Glad.
Oh, they lost
Okay.
round 1 to Glad.
Because like
So,
it is actually really interesting how heavy the Glad slander is this season. It's just like, you know, you ask Violet, okay, so you play Glads, blah blah blah. Yeah, we lost against them. Okay, it was really upsetting. Why? Well, was it upsetting because you're just so much better than Glads? Yeah. and then you like ask someone, and it's like, oh yeah, it was really upsetting to lose against Glads, and they're like such a bad team, and like we should never lose against them. I'm looking at the scoreboard. They're currently 2-2, tied in 2023, right? Like, why is everyone shitting on Glads, dude? Like, what the fuck did they do? I gotta get someone on, like, from the Glads in order to answer me, like, what the fuck is going on in scrims.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, are they
it's
just
like
getting fucking tossed around in scrims and then in actual
Yeah.
games?
In
They're
actual
stage
games, they
players,
have
they're stage
star
players.
players that just slam.
Yeah.
I mean,
They have
Kai
no
will just
business
sometimes
doing
just get,
this
like, a
well.
40 bomb or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, just whatever.
Dante, again, and I said this in the preseason, and I'll say it now. The story of Dante doesn't make sense. It's very positive. This kid is an absolute beast.
Mm-hmm.
That can be true. So can the statement that his Winston is kind of bad.
Yeah.
Those two statements can both be accurate, both be true.
True.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where we're standing now.
Yeah.
The Gladiators do not seem very cohesive. What does seem like an angle for them is if Kevster, Kai, and Yaki go absolutely gangbusters and just slap up teams and they punch way above their weight.
Yep.
That's what I think everybody's
And
alluding
Astro,
to when they
put
talk about
Astro
this.
in there. Put Astro
Sure,
in
yes,
there,
you have to
Miami,
put. I
big
think
go.
a lot of these players in there, right? Like Babel also looks very good sometimes. Astro has his moments where he's absolutely just winning games for them. Like it is a big overperformance on a consistent basis, which is surprising from a lot of different parties to kind of see them look as competitive as they are, because my suspicion is that the Scrimbucks do not see them performing nearly as well.
I do want to touch on, though, now that we're talking about Tank with Atlanta specifically.
Mhm.
I think they deserve a lot of credit because I think there was one person on this broadcast who was talking about Hawk and how Hawk would integrate into the team. Cough, cough.
True.
And I think that Atlanta has done a phenomenal job of putting Hawk in a position where when they swap between him and Donghak, there's virtually no difference. If you take the nameplates off, I wouldn't be able to tell that there was any like break in communication or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they like, I think Gator, for instance, deserves a lot of credit, and the rest of like the support staff and like Hawk himself, I think as well, like being able to be in that position where it can't be easy to be like the only non-Korean player in a position like that, but like I think he deserves a lot of credit for still like performing as well as he has on like a team that is full of like people who don't speak the same language as him, and like they still like communicate really well when he's in the lineup.
Does
I don't
feel
see
like it,
too much of a difference. So I think that just to touch on like, you know, as we go to Dante and like going back over to Hawk, I think he deserves a lot of credit, and the rest of the team does, for like making him kind of fit so seamlessly into a position that might not be easy.
That's true. Yeah, no, I will wholeheartedly eat crow there. I think this is a success story in the face of a lot of teams having a lot of difficulties in similar positions, and they're reaping the benefits of it. Right? They bring on somebody who you're pointing out, rightfully so, to be, you know, a tank rookie, and maybe leading the ballot for, you know, Alarm Rookie of the Year.
It's him and Sugar Free, I think, at this point.
Feels like it, right? And Hawk, yeah, it doesn't look like he's missing a beat. I think I think it makes a lot of sense of what they've done. I think the way that the rest of the offseason played out for them in terms of support staff made a lot of sense to me, especially like the Wizard Young signing. That one was like, okay, now this all kind of comes together. He was kind of the red bow. But no, yeah, I'll eat that crow. I think that, you know, I suspected that that Hawk was gonna struggle a little bit. Doesn't, you know, we removed the nameplate, so it doesn't look like that's a mixed roster at all. It looks like a cohesive unit. So credit to him. I agree. I'll hold that L. Take that.
We got him.
We got it, boys.
We can do it.
All right.
Believers rise up.
We've got a mid-season champion.
This tournament. It's just.
It does feel likely, right? It doesn't. It feels hard to see.
I did say that during Pro-Am, where I was like, they're just gonna run through the bracket, and then Glad's like somehow.
I think, yeah, basically everybody fucking got that wrong.
How fun would it be if Florida won this again?
That would be crazy. That would be
bonkers.
Be
I think that's probably one of the biggest success stories. If we do have them win, it's potentially. I can't think of like a better. Maybe Paris, like the one time that they won. With,
yeah.
Like,
the stage. Yeah,
with the Genji meta. But beyond that, like this would probably be or Shanghai winning their stage.
You know what it reminds me of? Unironically, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Envious winning. Absolutely making Korea sound like a library. 4-0ing Arhan and his shitty Dragon Blades. With some Thai Diva 1 trick that came in a week before, and they just go ballistic.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the type of story that Florida winning the Midseason Madness, coming in by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts. Yeah, it would be unheard of to the likes of an Envious storyline. That'd be bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will that happen? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Hey, tomorrow it starts.
I mean, if you're listening to this as it comes out, you probably won't have to wait too terribly long.
Probably later today.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interestingly, Skewed, who at this point I think already had scrimmed a couple of teams, said Atlanta's the favorite.
Yeah.
But after that, it's anyone's game.
I believe it. I believe it. I like the energy around Boston. I think, you know, you guys raised a lot of points. I may disagree with some of them in degrees, but I think they are competitive. I think that the Spark probably are the only team that I would probably stratify as like low. But even then, again, if we're gonna talk about the Gladiators and like fucking stroke off their DPS, you know, you can stroke off pretty hard. Shine Leave.
I think we genuinely did get like probably the best mix of like, I can't think of like too many teams that I've like would have been like, you know, maybe Trey.
I could name you one, but that's
like,
just me.
Dallas can go in, maybe probably would like another one. But like, I think for the 6 teams that we have like a lot of good, we have the Chinese super team, we have Seoul Infernal, who's kind of coming out of nowhere. All of the Western teams that are in, I think, are very like good in terms of like the narratives and the strength of the team. So I think that like this is going to be a great tournament. Like, I really can't see this
on land too, in Korea.
In Korea with the like, I can't. This is going to be
one for the books.
Can't wait.
Yep,
be there. So ready to hear audience.
Right. Oh, it's gonna be so nice. This game's so much better on LAN. Get us back to LAN. Kenobi, what's coming up? Close us out. What's coming in?
I'm on break for it, so like.
How's Diablo treating you then?
I haven't.
Are you more partial to it now? I know that you were a little hesitant.
Kinda. I'm like busy like doing other stuff that's like.
You're busy pulling in Honkai Star Rail. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I do play a lot more Honkai Star Rail than I do.
That's fair.
I need a
Diablo.
I need a Tarkov wife, dude. I need one really badly.
Oh, I do. Yeah, Tarkov would be nice. Yeah, I'm on break a bit. Contenders just ended. I think Summer Series is starting relatively soon, so make sure to follow Path the Pro. Twitter's right here under my name if you want to follow me and hear me wax politically, or not wax politically. Talk about narratives in like esports and of the games that we're going to be having.
Sure.
And also about like anime, I guess, another thing. But yeah, that's I'm pretty much just waiting until the next casting thing.
Feel ya.
I'll be back on broadcast.
Banger. Yiska, what's coming up?
You didn't respond to me on Discord, so I gotta ask live on broadcast. Can you like use your warlock powers and give me a new Tarkov?
It doesn't work that way.
Can you feel it?
I
feel it right now.
For those of you,
I don't know how it works.
Okay, just try.
Oh,
give it an honest effort. Okay.
Yeah.
For
For
the
you,
audio
Kenobi, explain.
listeners, we're currently
so
summoning.
Joe is very good at just like putting things.
Oh, not
into
the goat!
ether.
Don't cut the goat. Okay, sorry.
So he told me that if I bought money on Honkai Star Rail and I did a pull, I would get the 5-star. So I bought money and just to prove him wrong, and he got me the 5-star twice with 15 pulls. People who play Honkai Star Rail will know what that means. People who don't, just know that the odds were very, very low of that happening.
Did you
Good
have?
for you, Yiska.
Do you actually have an incense like fucking?
No, yeah, I don't know. My sister got it for me for
That's
Christmas.
an awfully hot coffee pot.
It's nice.
It's kind of cool. I thought it was like a cute gift. But no, audio listeners, I struck a singing bowl and lit a candle for Yiska's hopeful. I mean, let's be honest. There's probably one coming. They just have to announce it. Like, this isn't like a warlock.
I need it to come
manifestation.
out in the next 2 or 3 weeks, though. Like
I think that's likely. I think that's probably kind of likely.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's like mid-July.
I really need it.
Here, this is what I feel. If I'm gonna tea leave raid, I think by like within the next 2 weeks, you'll probably have a date.
Okay.
That would be my read.
The thing is, like, they already have started bullshitting a little bit in terms of like adding rule sets, and it feels like what I heard, what preseason events or like late wipe events
End
are.
of season, this is
this
what it
feels like we're getting there.
Yeah, you should be getting a date of like when the next wipe happens pretty soon. That would be my guess.
Please.
When that is, that it's not up to me. You have to pray to Nikita for that one.
Low key, lot of players in the Overwatch League that like some Tarkov. Like I won't.
Edison historically one that played a lot of Tarkov?
Did he?
I can't reveal who's doing it, but I'm getting a lot of like. There's some people in the Overwatch League that are just like Riz Redding all day. They're sitting in trees, just like waiting. They are actually stank ratting all the time. It's crazy, and they're juicing. Like I'm getting the fat chat loot clips, okay, sent to me. So I'm pogged. I need it.
Guys, quit. Go play Cabela's Big Game Hunter if you want to.
The game is so fun though.
Go sit in a tree stand and go hunt deer if you want to just
go to your local Bass Pro or your local Cabela's.
Go hunting if you want to just sit in trees and wait around. Let's get our elbows dirty and play the game. Okay.
Wait, okay. What is happening? You're against the cheesy strategy and I'm for it. What the fuck?
Yeah, that is a bit of a change.
I don't know, man. I don't know what you're smoking.
Tides are turning.
The thing is, like, the weird thing about Joe in these games is, like, Joe actually doesn't camp that hard. Like, I remember in PUBG, like, I was sitting back with my sniper, and Baroy might be driving around with a car or whatever, and Joe is just some wild flank, just, like, trying to get into melee range against a squad of 3. That was basically the story every time.
Pretty much, yeah. There's quite a few lost footage clips of Yiska basically scouting and pointing out people, and me driving Baroy into his own death because he happened to be in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And me apologizing profusely when we get absolutely gunned down driving through.
That was so many banger clips.
Next Tarkov wipe, vehicles. Am I right, fellas?
Oh no! Oh no! That would be tremendously.
I'm
something.
looking so forward to not being absolute dead weight. Like the first web is so rough in this game. Like
it's a learning
you
curve.
guys had to carry the shit out of me. I was atrocious, and then like
you got up to speed pretty quick. You're a little Luke Goblin, but
no, I gotta be a little bit more, fight focused. I also have this tendency of like overvaluing how bad injuries are, and I always want to CMS as quickly as possible in order to prepare for the next fight. It's not great.
No. Homie is constantly surgery. He is always.
Dude, I have reload sickness as well.
Unless he's just got no mats and then he's running with broken legs and just falls over.
Oh man. That like reload sickness in that game is the worst, dude. Like, when like I also do it on Ana. I'm like, oh, there's a Genji that's missing 5 HP. Okay, let's top him off. Like there's this bit in between fights. I have 15 shots
reload.
left. Reload.
Yep.
Gotta do it. And in the moment I reload, there's the Genji around the corner and I'm getting boned. Yeah, I know.
It's hard to break. It's hard to break because a lot of times it feels really shit having to reload in the middle of a fight, or you have to like kick out a mag to be able to get back in the fight a little bit faster, right?
Yep.
Like it's not something you want to do, but you know, they make game mechanics for it. That being said, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for staying around. And if you did get to the Tarkov section, please, you know, let the algorithm know that you stayed around this long.
Do you like screwdrivers? Hand drills?
Do you like hand drills?
Do you like hand drills?
If you want to perpetually, if you hate Yiska and you want to tilt him off the face of the world, go on his Twitter right now and tweet him a picture of a hand drill. Thank me later.
Tarkov.
I don't even care at this point. All right. Thank you all. Love your faces. We will see you next week. I guess, yeah, with a conclusion to the Midseason Madness. Whatever that looks like. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Peace.